We have an FCA, keen now to push a diversity agenda. As if diversity in the city is what matters. Well, when I worked here, it didn't matter what religion you were. It didn't matter where you came from. It didn't matter what class you were. It didn't matter what colour you were. When I worked in the city, it was based on, are you good enough?
Stop the cap.
Okay, so this DEI agenda, I think we need to talk about this because I think, like with many things, it's not been presented in the correct way, right? And there's another point to consider here, right? Because I'm thinking about his generation of his own members of his family working in the banking system, right? He's got this generational legacy of bankers. It's like, you know, is that just happened to be a meritocracy, right? Because that's what this is about, right? Is it a meritocracy? And what DEI is doing, right, is it's basically giving opportunities. It's not giving jobs. It's giving opportunities to people that would not necessarily have an opportunity for various reasons. And it might be that they didn't go to the right university. So that would apply to, for example, or it should apply to, say, a white working class male or female, for example. There's other working class demographics, there's working class black people, but I'm just saying in this example, a working class white male who didn't go to an Ivy League university. So they went to university, but they just couldn't get into an Ivy League one. And therefore, what DEI would say or require of some of these bigger sort of banks and hedge funds is that typically want to focus on Ivy League universities, for example, is say, okay, well, you've got 10 spots, but actually make it 15. And those other 15 should be like women and black people and white working class person, which is why if you look at the check boxes for recruitment forms, you'll see things about where did you go to school, what were your parents doing, et cetera, right? Trans people, etc. But then when it actually comes to selecting from that recruitment pool, the same standards should still apply. So if it ends up that the person they select comes from the Ivy League school that they always would have selected, that's absolutely fine. DEI is looking at the recruitment process. It's looking at, are you considering a diverse talent pool and assessing on that basis and being open-minded and then being transparent about your recruitment criteria. So it mitigates nepotism, right? It's a countermeasure to nepotism. And that's why they've looked at things like internships and making them paid. Because again, if you don't pay them, then typically the people that benefit from internships are the people that don't need the salary and the people with the connections. So when you hear a situation where you have, my son was a pilot, my daughter was a pilot, then their daughter was a pilot, and so on and so forth, this whole legacy of banking professionals, this whole legacy of golfers, the reason you're seeing that is because the opportunities are not available to others, and therefore the talent pool is restricted to those that can afford to coach and train their children into having the opportunity and exposure into those professions. But then at the same time, once they get in, they then have to prove that they are good enough. And this is substantiating Nigel Farage's point that you must be good enough. So the point I'm making is that diversity just opens doors. It just presents the door. You can walk through it, but if you are found wanting, it does not matter who you are, you're going to get kicked out. So he and his ancestors were competent. They deserved to be there. But the reality is that they were not facing the same level of competition that they otherwise would have faced for those jobs if diversity, equality, and inclusion was something that was in effect. Because what they would have had to have done is compete with a wider talent pool, and the right person would still be the person that comes out on top. And if they were always going to be the right person, it doesn't change anything for them. It's as simple as that. But if it does, and you find, instead it's this other person from that other demographic that gets the job, it's not a token hire. They deserve to be there.